Daniel sat at a diner's counter. The coffee smell brought memories to him about long nights working cases and solving puzzles. It reminded him of a simpler time that, although not innocent by any measure, was far less dark than his current predicament. Resting in front of him was a small and cold cup of coffee that had no steam left. He looked at it melancholic, almost sad. He never thought in his wildest dreams that he would miss such a simple beverage so much.
Do you want me to top that off?
A young woman wearing overalls over a black top asked him with a coffee pot in her hand.
No thanks, I'm good.
You haven't touched it yet, have you?
I have stomach ulcers. My doctor won't allow me to drink it anymore, but I miss it so much, especially the smell.
She felt sympathy for him and reached for the cup, throwing the liquid on the sink and refilling it.
It's gonna be our little secret.
Thank you. What is your name again?
I'm Roxy.
She smiled with a twinkle in her eyes.
I'm Daniel, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Daniel. You know, they say much of the flavor comes from the smell. If you close your eyes, I bet you could almost taste it again.
Daniel smiled, but she insisted.
Come on, give it a try.
He knew that he would never go for this kind of sentimental stuff, but the young woman was so kind and charismatic that he did not want to disappoint her. He closed his eyes and inhaled, and for a brief moment he felt a deeply rich flavor descending on his throat, earthy notes and a discernible bitterness that took him back in time, a simpler time.
What are you doing, you weirdo?
Eloise laughed, approaching Daniel. He opened his eyes in surprise, and Roxy was nowhere to be found, and his friend was by his side.
I don't really know…
Come on, let's go. You're weird.
That I know. Ha,
He said, following her. They got into the car, and when Eloise turned it on, the headlights revealed a fox that found refuge behind a tree. The animal's eyes twinkled in the light as it observed the car leaving. The Chevalier was a piece of history in Dreadford. A small French restaurant in the Bohemian district of the town started in the days of the Prohibition. It quickly became famous for its exquisite dishes made by its chefs and by the criminal legends that patronized the restaurant on the moonshine days. Its owner, Jean-Luc, was a French migrant that moved to Dreadford to escape the old world. Today, it is a three-generation family business in the hands of the original owner's grandson, Jean-Luc III, or so mortals of the city believe. A staple of the cuisine of Dreadford, when the restaurant acquired the 3-star rating in the Michelin catalogue, it was not celebrated but expected by its utter professional and synchronized staff. From the kitchen to the hostess, everything was perfect. Reservation lists went for months, and a simple dinner may rack up a tab of thousands of dollars. A real who's who of the uber wealth of the city made the rich tapestry of the clientele, and its wine cellar was renowned throughout the world by its own award-winning wine brand by Jean-Luc. Tonight, though, the dinner at the Chevalier was interrupted by 4 people entering the restaurant wearing trench coats and Halloween masks while carrying shotguns. A lot of screaming, gasps, and pearl-clutching ensued, but they were all cut by a scream.
Everybody calm down. You do what we say and nobody gets hurt.
2 of the figures walked around with burlap sacks, taking fat wallets and jewelry from the patrons.
We can see you are burdened by the weight of your wealth, so as good Samaritans, we are here to relieve you of that burden.
Mr. 2 was finding resistance from an old lady who refused to give up an emerald and gold brooch. He cocked his shotgun and pointed to the face of the old lady. Mr. 4 approached the situation, putting his hand on the barrel of the shotgun, making it point to the floor.
Not today.
Okay, little brother. Not today.
Mr. 4 got on one knee and gently retrieved the emerald and gold brooch from the old lady. She tried to keep it, but he held to it with enough strength to make her realize she could not win the dispute.
It's not worth it, miss.
She gave up, and they continued filling up the burlap sacks, until a handsome blonde man in a pinstripe suit came out from the back.
Are you crazy? Do you even know what you're doing?
You must be Jean-Luc the turd.
Mr. 4 asked as he was putting the brooch on the sack.
Very funny, monsieur.
Great.
Mr. 4 looked at Mr. 1 and pointed to the blonde man with his head. The big figure nodded positively and bashed the butt of the gun on the head of the host, who fell to his knees. The figure caught him by the collar and dragged him to the back of the restaurant, followed by the other 3 figures covering his back. The patrons were baffled and in shock. No one moved.
Where is Mr. Corse?
Jean-Luc's eyes widened. Who were these people? Suddenly, he felt another violent hit from the butt of a gun in his head.
Where is he?
The restaurateur took Mr. 4 and Mr. 2 to a private room in the restaurant, while Ms. 3 and Mr. 1 stayed behind on crowd control. Inside of the room was Steve Corse and 2 other men engaged in a real estate discussion. They were caught off guard, but raised their hands as soon as they saw the masked men carrying weapons.
What is the meaning of this?
Well, Mr. Corse, we are here to take you on a little trip. How long?
Mr. 4 asked Mr. 2, who checked his watch.
A minute? Maybe less. Depends on how smart he is.
Mr. 2 answered, pointing with his head to Jean-Luc. Sirens echoed through the small restaurant. Mr. 1 appeared at the door.
Cops are here!
Jean-Luc smiled at Mr. 4, very satisfied with himself.
Perfect. Initiate Operation Pandemonium.
Jean-Luc's smile vanished in disappointment. Mr. 4 caught Mr. Corse by the collar, making him stand up and directing him to the kitchen, where he met with Mr. 1 and Ms. 3. From inside the private room, shotgun blasts could be heard. The crowd, realizing the criminals were not standing guard anymore, stormed in a frenzy, trying to reach the exit as soon as the shots were heard, creating confusion and obstructing the entrance for the cops who desperately called in for backup. In the kitchen, as the staff realized what was happening, one of the cooks, in a desperate display of loyalty, picked up a cleaver and attacked Mr. 4, but a blow from a shotgun stopped him. Mr. 4 looked back and saw the smoke coming out of Mr. 2's barrel. He shook his head in disapproval.
He said we should take care of each other, little brother.
Mr. 4 grunted.
Get the rest of them out of here.
They emptied the kitchen from the staff, and Mr. 4 said to the restaurateur,
Where is the secret door?
There is no secret door.
Mr. 1 punched him in the face.
Where is it?
You will tell us where it is, or we'll turn you to ashes right now.
Mr. 4 cocked the shotgun and put it to Jean-Luc's face. That's when everything changed. Jean-Luc stood up, fixing his suit. His cowardly desperation turned into a menacing scowl. His demeanor, threatening, changing along with his appearance. Mr. Corse looked at them, puzzled.
Who are you?
We are nobodies, and we are everybody you ever slighted in your pathetic and hypocritic eternity. We are reckoning, and your masters will account for us. Now, where is the goddamn secret door?
Jean-Luc walked to the end of the kitchen and opened the walk-in freezer. They all followed him, taking Mr. Corse along. Inside, he went to the back, and there he pressed a mechanism that opened a trap door on the floor, revealing a set of concrete stairs that went down. Mr. 1 pushed Jean-Luc, who went down, followed by Mr. Corse. As they descended, they could hear the sirens of the police backup arriving.
How do you pretend to escape with the cops outside?
By your secret passage that will take us to the sewers.
Jean-Luc was visibly surprised. They reached a chamber filled with bottles of wine, and the figures started to put some of them inside the bags.
Where is it?
What are you talking about?
The vineyard.
Jean-Luc's eyes went wide.
How do you know?
We know everything.
Jean-Luc took them through underground tunnels that revealed a secret lair underneath the restaurant. Finally, they reached a metal door, but before they could open, they heard footsteps coming down the stairs of the secret passage.
Familiars. They have familiars in the police squad.
Of course we have. We own this city, the police, newspapers, city hall. We are the King's Court, putain. Ha 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 ha. That's how desperate the tower is, sending bloodlings and suicide missions. Pathetic. Quel travail de cochon.
Javier lifted his shotgun and shot Jean-Luc, but to their surprise, it passed by him as if he was not there and he wasn't. His presence revealed itself as a mirage that disappeared after being hit by the blast, and an eerie laughter echoed through the tunnels.
Mr. 1, would you do us the honor?
The huge man threw the shotgun to his partner, who caught it in the air and proceeded to punch the door with all his might. The steel warped under the weight of his unnatural strength until it deformed enough to allow his fingers to grab the door by its side. In an ungodly fit of strength, Mr. 1 started to slowly rip the door from the wall, while Mr. 4 kept Mr. Corse under the aim of both shotguns. 4 familiars arrived wearing Dreadford's police department tactical gear and took position, immediately shooting the group. The corridor had no cover, but Miss 3 raised her hand and felt a cold numbness coursing through it. The feeling was unnerving, but she heard the void answering, and when it did, the entire place grew cold and the shadows raised between the familiars and their targets like a formless eldritch nightmare. The bullets entered one side of the barricade, but they never left on the other one. Mr. 2 smiled like a wicked devil and tried reaching for the weapons of his enemies with his mind. The submachine gun of one of the familiars was ripped from his hand and started to shoot at the others, making the cops jump for cover at the corner of the corridor. In the confusion, Mr. Corse grew his arm into a demonic form. His skin turned into greenish hue scales, and black spikes grew from it, ripping his expensive suit sleeves, and he sank his unnatural claws into the chest of Mr. Four, missing his heart by an inch. Leon screamed in pain, and Stephanie held back hers. Her eyes turned red and she felt something hissing, something dark and bitter twisting and coiling inside her soul. With blood escaping his mouth, Leon smiled and lifted both shotguns in the direction of Mr. Corse's chin, firing both of them at him at the same time. The vampire fell to the ground with half of his face dissolving into ashes. He was not destroyed, but the shots rendered him incapacitated. Javier threw his mind with all the strength he could muster against the familiars, and to his delight, he could feel bones and joints cracking. Their vests could not protect against such a violent outburst, and the men fell to the floor in a hideous state. A metal ramble declared that Wade finally ripped the door open. Leon fell to the ground, but Wade caught him up, and while Javier carried the limp body of Mr. Corse, they went through the door with the sound of more familiars descending the stairs.
We have to finish this fast,
Leon said, hissing. His lung was punctured by the strike.
Here.
Stephanie offered him the open bottle of blood. He took it and drank it all, and his wounds slowly started to heal. The companions came down a tunnel, and at the end there was another metal door, but this one was a lot less resistant. Wade used his immense strength and forced the doors open, but before they could pass the threshold, shots were fired from the entrance. They went in carrying Mr. Corse by the collar and closed the metal door behind them.
Oh my.
What the?
What in the hell is this?
A profane visage stood before them, branding their memories forever. The chamber was a hellish dungeon with people wrapped in chains, hanging from the ceiling. Ivies came out from exposed parts and went up like a cursed vine all the way up to the ceiling, connecting to other tubes that would slowly suck the blood from its victims and transfer it into a deposit. An unholy melody of nightmarish moans of the half-awake victims created the base for those unfortunate enough to be aware of what was happening, to scream and cry, pleading to be released, coupled with the fast respiration of those suffering mental breakdowns. It was the stuff of which nightmares are made of.
This is the vineyard.
Javier gave the only logical answer in awe of what he was witnessing.
We should free them all,
Leon said, but at the same time they could hear shots being fired against the door.
We should.
No, we don't have the time.
She's right.
We still need to finish course, and the extraction team is waiting in the tunnels. The more we waste time here, the bigger are the chances that Nosferatu reinforcements will come.
Leviathans with the police and Orlocks from the tunnels.
Exactly.
Hey yo, anybody see Mr. Corse?
They all looked around and the vampire was missing. The chorus of suffering mortals continued, accompanied by the rattling of chains. From outside, they could hear the cautious footsteps of the familiars. Suddenly, a 7-feet-tall terrifying monster came out of the shadows. Backhanding Javier with such strength, the man was thrown to the floor. The hair-raising creature was a diabolical mixture of demon and dragon, with small, stunted wings at his back. His body was covered in murky greenish scales and black spikes. He advanced once more against Javier, but Stephanie got on his way, calling up on the void. The darkness around her turned into a shield in her hand, blocking a second attack from the monster, who in his turn roared in frustration. The familiars outside were doing everything within their power to open the doors of the room, but Wade held them, keeping the doors closed. Leon unsheathed his knife and started to move against the monster.
No, Leon. You need to find the panic room so we can use the passage to the tunnels.
Okay. Wade, do you think you can take care of the familiars on the other side of the door?
He nodded in agreement, opened the door, stepping outside, and closed it behind him. Leon sped up, crossing the nightmarish vineyard looking for a hidden room. Steve Corse, in his demonic form, rained down a flurry of blows against Stephanie, until her shield made of darkness dissolved itself. She tried to call upon the void to make a new one, but before she could feel the cold coursing through her veins, the creature caught her by the neck, lifting her from the ground. Javier stood up and shot the creature with his shotgun, but it caused no harm. The demonic vampire laughed, his jaw disjointed and elongated. Its breath was a steam with a putrid smell of blood. In a futile gesture, Stephanie tried to resist it, but the monster easily bit her neck. A splash of blood fell to the floor as the creature drank from her. On the other side of the door, Wade was confronted with a volley of shots. He closed his eyes and lifted his hands, trying to protect himself. His dead body absorbed much of the impact, but the bullets ripped his dead flesh, causing a lot of damage. He opened his eyes and they were red and luminous. He grunted and charged against the closest familiar. With a punch, the man was thrown to the ground with his sternum broken. One of the remaining familiars pointed the gun at him, but Wade grabbed the barrel and bent it, rendering the gun useless. The vampire punched the face of the familiar, and a crack emitted from his jaw as the man fell limp to the floor. Back in the vineyard, Javier screamed with fury. His eyes turned red and the raven inside offered him power, which he readily accepted. The Nephilim rejoiced inside his soul, flapping its wings and emitting a sinister pitch in a display of triumph. He pointed both of his hands to the monster's chest and reached for it with his mind. His blood started to burn, fueling the profane power of his mind. His head pulsed and he wailed in agonizing pain. In the back of the room, Leon was looking for anything that could point to a hidden panic room. He heard shots coming from behind him, followed by screams. He started to feel a morbid panic trying to take a hold on him. He focused himself in the baleful power of his blood, and time seemed to pass in a slow motion. With wicked speed, he crossed the room from one side to the other, knocking on stones to check if the sound felt different and looking for cavities and possible contraptions that could reveal the door to safety. Outside the vineyard, Wade kept trying to protect his head with his huge hands as he took another volley of shots. Bits of flesh and tattered pieces of his clothing flew from him. The magazine of the guns ran empty, and the men tried to quickly reload. Wade laid down his hand, revealing that half of his face had his skull exposed. He scowled with anger and pain as he covered both men in blows before taking one of them and sinking his teeth on him, gulping down his blood eagerly. In the vineyard, the creature's side of the chest started to pulse faster and faster. Javier's head pulsed in the same rhythm as he continued to scream from a searing pain in his head. A crack was heard inside the monster as Javier commanded the creature's own ribs to perforate its heart, and it fell to the floor, limp near the unconscious Stephanie. Wade came back to the room just in time to see it happen and looked at him in awe. Javier smiled back at his companion in disbelief, but in the next moment he felt a cutting pain and held his head. It felt like it was going to split in two, and suddenly, his temporal vein exploded with a gush of blood, and he fell to the ground. In the back of the room, Leon finally discovered a covert button which he pressed, in a cavity next to the blood deposits, making the wall slide and reveal a metal door to a panic room.
I found our exit. Let's go.
He came back and found a terrifying scene. He looked at Wade's face, half of it with exposed bone.
We need to get out of here now.
Yes, let's finish the big guy and get the hell out of here.
On the other side of the city, Eloise and Daniel arrived at his motel parking lot by car.
I am worried. Julio is having some difficulties at home. It seems his wife has been refusing the treatment since she discovered that it consisted of vampiric blood. The cancer is coming back, and she may not have a lot of time if she keeps denying it.
That's a tough situation. How is he? Can we help with something?
They exited the car.
Not well. As you know, he got into this to save her, so the situation is taking a toll on him. I wish we could help, but I can't see how any of us can do anything other than be there for him.
Eloise noticed that Daniel had worry in his eyes. The detective was truly feeling the weight of the whole situation. He looked tired.
Thanks for the ride. I have a lot of documents to go over, so it is better to get to it. Tom is at the city hall and will be here with a new batch any moment.
Not a problem.
Daniel went up the stairs and crossed the balcony, heading for his room. He opened the door, but before he went in, he heard Eloise calling.
Daniel!
He went back and saw her smiling in the parking lot by her car.
You are a cool guy. You have helped a lot of people already in amazing ways. I have never met someone like you. We are going to find a solution somehow. Don't beat yourself too much.
Daniel Reed smiled, but before he could answer, the explosion coming from his room threw him from the balcony into the ground in the parking lot. His vision was blurry, and the last thing he saw was Eloise running to him, screaming his name.
Daniel! Daniel!